Welcome back to Wake Up America. So big developments are unfolding in New York. Democrat and Republican candidates are lining up in a fierce fight to be the next New York City mayor. Plus, the federal task force will be fighting the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. And on top of it all, Democrat mayors from Chicago, Boston, Denver, and of course, New York were put on the hot seat by the House Oversight Committee this week. So to help break all of this down and more, let's welcome in New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. Great to see you this morning. Before we dive into the hearings or who might be the next NYC mayor, I'd like to ask you about new legislation that I know you, along with Representative Aaron Bean, introduced called the Safeguard Pets, Animals, and Research Ethics, or SPARE Act. Can you tell me more about why this is so important to you?
The American people would be shocked to know that the U.S. government spends billions of dollars annually to conduct these unnecessary and inhumane experiments on dogs, cats, monkeys, rabbits, other animals. And some of them are just pure torture. We were able to stop successfully an experiment by the VA in which they were drilling cats' skulls. They also had an experiment where they're infesting beagles with fleas, another agency. Then, of course, this week, the Trump administration announced that they're going to pull funding from transgender hormone therapy on monkeys and other animals. Completely unnecessary and wasteful spending.
Yeah.
And so my legislation would end federal funding of these unnecessary experiments here in the United States and in other countries. Believe it or not, they were funding experiments in China, Russia, Iran. It's just ludicrous, especially after what happened in the Wuhan lab and gain-of-function research. We have to be cautious in those countries that have subpar safety conditions. So there is an exemption if it's truly medically necessary and there's no other alternative, but we have to crack down on this. Is a perfect way to save money for the American taxpayer and, of course, protect animals for those of us who love them.
Yes, absolutely. I do want to shift gears to the New York City mayoral race. So a new Quinnipiac poll has former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo way ahead of the competition in this one. So if the primary was held today, 31% of registered New York City Democrats would vote for Cuomo, only 11% saying they would vote for Eric Adams. What's your take on this race? What do you think happens?
Well, look, I think Andrew Cuomo does have significant name recognition. And if you look at the rest of the field, I mean, it's one is worse than the other. Really, there's no real good candidate on the Democratic side. I would remind my fellow New Yorkers, however, that it was Andrew Cuomo that made New York State a sanctuary state, gave illegal immigrants your tax dollars for free college tuition while your family's taking on loans and debt. He's also the one who brought us New York City congestion pricing, and he's the one who brought us the botched bail law that has released dangerous people back onto our streets.
I also want to get your reaction to the new federal task force dedicated to combating anti-Semitism. I know they're set to visit 10 college campuses that have experienced anti-Semitic incidents since October of 2023. We've seen a lot of those incidents happening at universities right here in New York, including Columbia and NYU. We just heard Secretary of Education Linda McMahon talking about that a few minutes ago on our show. What do you make of this?
I think it's incredibly important. I mean, every student should feel safe when they are on their college campus. Students should be there to learn, not to antagonize and threaten and abuse their fellow classmates. We've seen a rise of anti-Semitism, particularly here in New York City. I've introduced legislation that would actually potentially strip federal funding, give the secretary the ability to do that from these institutions if they don't hold student organizations and faculty accountable. And also, I've introduced legislation to strip visas from foreign students participating in anti-Semitism. But President Trump did it by executive order, which is great. Hopefully, we can codify that into law as well.
All right, Congressman Nicole Malliotakis, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, too.
So coming up after President Trump's joint